I'm Ryan Mello, Pierce County Executive. We're out here at the Mount Rainier Creamery.
If you guys have never had this is the best cheesecake I swear it's the best cheesecake you'll ever have in your life. We've had a lot of people help us, which includes some in this group.
Yeah.
And so we're thankful.
Come on out. These great new small businesses who have local farms and doing direct market work. So great new small business out here. Today we've been on a listening tour out in East Pierce County. We had a roundtable discussion with mayors here in East Pierce, included leaders from Buckley, Carbonado, Wilkeson, South Prairie. We got to see some infrastructure projects that we participated in, helping to fund some sewer capacity, some drinking water improvements that we've made in collaboration with our city partners. And then just now we got to really tour one of the biggest economic development projects happening in all of Pierce County, and that is the Tahale development. So we got to see where new road infrastructure is coming in to serve this community, 55 and older communities, and new industrial spaces. That is really promising to bring hundreds of great family wage jobs to our community here in Pierce County. Today's been a great demonstration of moving forward together, making progress and doing it together with our cities and towns, building communities that are safe, welcoming and connected.
Good morning. I'd like to call the Pierce County Council Economic and Infrastructure Development Committee meeting to order. It is April 22nd, 2025. Time is 9:32. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, good morning. Councilmember Yambe.
Here.
Councilmember Denson. Here. Councilmember Herrera. Councilmember Herrera.
Here.
And Councilmember Ayala. Here. And Councilmember Morrell.
Here.
You have 5 members present.
Good. We have all members present. Appreciate everyone showing up this morning. Okay, you have before you the agenda for today's meeting. Are there any changes, questions? Not seeing any. The agenda will stand as presented. We also have the minutes of the April 8th meeting, 2025. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. Any corrections, questions? Not seeing any. The minutes will stand as presented. For the record, Council Member Groover is with us. So thank you for making your attendance. Okay, with that, we have before us item number 5, which is proposal number R, 2025-141. Would you like to read it into the record now?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay.
Proposal number R 2025-141, a resolution of the Pierce County Council identifying street lighting and other neighborhood traffic projects for funding pursuant to ordinance number 2023-44S2, 2024 to 2025 biennial budget, and requesting the county engineer to review and authorize said projects.
Thank you. Okay, who's going to handle this?
I'm going to go ahead and start.
Okay.
Erica Rhett Hunt, council staff. So the resolution before you today is the annual Neighborhood Traffic Safety Program. The program adopts a list of council-identified small-scale lighting and traffic safety projects that are funded by an appropriation from the budget. They're also recognized in this 6-year transportation improvement program as a county road project. So the 24-25 budget appropriated $300,000 over the biennium, and in 2024, Council adopted a resolution that approved a list of 25 projects and authorized half the appropriation. So the resolution today looks to authorize the remaining $150,000 and requests that the county engineer review and approve these projects as appropriate. Exhibit A includes the proposed list of projects. Since the program's only available for projects in the unincorporated area, there are no projects listed for our fully incorporated District 4. There's one amendment to add a project, which Mr. Swanson will speak to at the appropriate time. Staff's prepared an equity note, and that's in the packet. There's also no fiscal impact since the money for the program was already set aside in the budget.
Thank you for that explanation. Is there any questions on that? And this is a reoccurring resolution that
Correct.
happens with just updated projects.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have one amendment?
There's one amendment.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion for the amendment, and then we'll have Mr. Swanson explain it. Anyone want to move committee amendment number 1? Can't do everything here. Okay. Committee member Herrera.
I move amendment number 1.
It's been moved and seconded that we move amendment number 1. Mr. Swanson, will you explain amendment number 1?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, amendment number 1 would very simply just add an additional project to the District 1 section of the list. This additional project would be a traffic calming evaluation on 198th Avenue East between 120th Street East and 137th Street East. This would raise the total number of projects to 22 projects, with 21 of those being district projects. And this is in line with and very similar to a lot of the other projects we have listed on Exhibit A already.
Okay. Are there any questions? And just for the committee's knowledge, information, this 198th is the main road into Tahale. So it's a 5-lane road now. So that's where the location is. So if there's no questions, then there is a motion on the floor to accept committee amendment number 1, or reject committee amendment number 1. All those in favor of committee amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Committee amendment 1 has been accepted. Brings us back to the main motion, which is proposal number R 2025-141. Are there any questions? Not seeing any. This is, we need to have a public comment on this.
Yeah, public comment and then an official motion.
For any member of the public that would like to provide public comment on proposal number R. On proposal number R 2025-141, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I assume no one in the room would like to make comment on this resolution. So seeing that there's no rush to the podium, then I will bring it back to the committee and look to Vice Chair Ayala for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move that proposal R 2025-141 be forwarded to the full council with the due pass recommendation.
Rolling all amendments
Oh.
into the motion.
The substitute.
Thank you for that. I move that we roll all amendments into proposal R 2025-141 to the full council with the due pass recommendation.
As a substitute, just want to confirm.
As a substitute.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to roll all amendments into a substitute and move R 2025-141 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that moves us on to the main event, which is the presentation on permitting improvements. And I will start with an introduction for staff on this. And so, Erica Rett-Hunt, are you going to lead the charge on this one?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So today we're bringing you a discussion about permitting process improvements in Pierce County. We're going to start with a presentation by Planning Public Works Department, and then we're going to invite 4 panelists to come forward and have a discussion with the committee about permit processing, timelines, as well as their experiences in Pierce County and other jurisdictions. So that's the plan for the meeting. I will, at this time, If it's okay with the chair, I will invite Lauren Flemister, the Deputy Director of Planning Public Works, and David Kinley, the Development Services Manager, to provide the presentation.
Great. You can come up to the podium. And just for the record, Chair Hitchens is with us this morning, which I'm totally honored that she's here. So that's great. Okay. Proceed. Thank you.
Good morning. And we understand we're the undercard, so we'll be brief. I just really wanted to take this opportunity to thank you, Chair Morrell, for putting this together. We're really looking forward to hearing from our partners in the development community. In Planning and Public Works, as you'll hear, we're constantly looking for ways to improve how we're managing the permitting process. But I think with new leadership in place, we really relish the opportunity to do it in partnership with the development community and community partners. And with that, I will hand it over to our Development Services Division Manager, David Kinley.
Good morning, Council.
You can raise the podium up with a button on your...
Oh, the podium itself? Oh. Thank you. So when we were given this proposal, it was kind of fun because I've been here all of 10 months, and I think Lauren's been here maybe twice that. So doing a history on permitting efficiencies for Pierce County was actually a really good exercise to go through, and learned a whole lot about what we've been working on. Back to about 2004 is what the information that I've found. So I thought we'd just put together a brief presentation on what we've found out, as well as discussing kind of what we've been through over the last couple of years here. So next slide would be great. So this is kind of the history we put together. 2004 and 5, there was an evaluation of the development permitting process by Zucker Systems. A gentleman named Paul Zucker put together a report on the state of permitting in Pierce County and a list of recommendations. There was a follow-up in kind of late 2006 that happened on that as well. He came back in, assessed some of the things that had been occurring, and then the successes and the things that still needed to be worked on. In between there was a few different evaluations, one of the Building Division, Plan Review Efficiency, and the other one for Fire Prevention Bureau. In 2007, Paul Zucker came back and did what was called the lobby weight study. Essentially, at that point in time, all permitting was done by coming into the lobby with your paper plans and documents and dropping that off. I remember that well, having been in the development community at that point in time, coming out, taking your number in the morning, trying to get there really early so you get a good number, so you could potentially get your permit submitted that day. That was the intent of that, was to provide more efficiencies so that people could get through the submittal process, was really what it came down to. 2009, there was a fee study done by the Lattimore Company. They also did the evaluations, 2 evaluations of Building Division and Fire Prevention Bureau back in 2006. And in 2011, that was creating the best permitting agency in the state study report was conducted in 2011. And then just recently, 2023 to 24 is when we've done the workflow improvement project. In between the 2011 and 2023, there's a number of different iterations of planning and public works, what we used to be, what we are now. So there was a merger of what was PALS and what was Public Works and Utilities in that time frame as well. So there's some different things that happened. No necessary studies that were conducted during that time that we could find, but the best permitting agency program, or what we call BPA, has been active since then. Next slide, please. So I just went through and we just summarized a lot of the report themes from all of these different reports that were conducted. there's commonalities between all of them. So efficiency and workflow optimization was one theme. Technology integration and automation was another. So back in the 2005 range, that's when we shifted over to what is currently our PALS Plus electronic permitting system off of a more archaic electronic system. And so that was a huge leap forward for us at that point in time. A whole lot of efficiencies gained at that point in time really helped in the paper process of getting permits rolling through the system. Another theme was customer service enhancement, focusing on reducing wait times, or reduce for everything, your permit application coming into the lobby at that point in time. Also, wait times for how long it takes to actually have us review the permit and issue it. And then staff training and empowerment was another theme that was in there, helping our staff make decisions at the lowest level possible, empowering them in that decision-making process, also developing our leadership to work through change management, consistent themes there. Standardization and clear guidelines is another theme that was consistent in all of these reports. Interdepartmental or intra-departmental, in the case of PPW, collaboration. Performance metrics and continuous improvement were also themes that were found in there. So defining our clear targets, using automated systems, those types of things. And then financial sustainability. What's interesting is, if we could go to the next slide, these are all themes that came from those initial reports, but if we read through our BPA goals, you'll see some of the same themes in them. So optimizing our permitting process, improving our permit procedures and technology systems, enhancing our customer satisfaction, ensuring sustainable financial resources, supporting livable and economic vibrant communities is part of what we are about today, and it's what BPA introduced in 2011. Training leadership to manage change effectively, again, develop and retain a competent workforce, and then providing tools and employees with our tools and resources to get the work done, and then fostering a culture of efficiency. So those were all the themes that came out of the Best Permitting Agency report. Next slide. And the Workflow Improvement Project, which has been underway for the last couple of years. You've probably heard us call it WIP. But that process, these were the intents of that process. So reducing the number of application types is part of the efficiency of our processes. Identifying and reduce regulations that are subject to staff interpretation. So that a lot of that what came into play there was education of our staff, making sure they understand what the regulations are, the shifting landscape of what we are to be reviewing against in terms of, we just went through a comprehensive plan. We're in the middle of implementation of that this year. So all these things have to be trained to my staff in order to be able to review against what is current. So reducing number of reviews and required to make a decision is a big efficiency point that we've been trying to introduce through the WIP process. Improving visibility for all of the associated applications. So when you have a base, what we call parent permit application, there could be a number of other applications that come in that are related to that, stuff like environmental review, site development permits, building permits, could all be subservient to a land use action. So those improving the visibility of those helps not just internally but externally as well. Where is my project? And then update of performance standards for application review times as a result of Senate Bill 5290. I'm sure that's a Senate bill that you've been made aware of. but basically dictates that there are certain timeframes that we have to get our body of work done. And then soliciting customer feedback for all of our permit-related services was a big component of what we were doing with the workflow improvement project. I won't read through all the organizational review, but there's part of what we did is restructure, report our entire organization, our technical review section, into teams that focus on different types of applications: residential teams, commercial teams, land use teams, environmental team. And so they could focus on their body of work and have interdisciplinary teams. That was an efficiency that we introduced this time around that was pretty unique. Next slide, please. Wanted to take a couple minutes just to talk about what's next. There's a lot of different things that we've done in the last year and a half. And as we've been assessing those since the beginning of the year, we realized there's efficiencies to be gained or adjustments needed. And so what we're looking to right now in terms of the things that we realize are not working, are not necessarily gaining efficiencies or creating space for us to get additional work done, we're going to make some adjustments. So we're in the process of modifying our pre-application screening. That the concept behind the pre-application screening was that if we can identify stuff like environmental constraints on the front end before somebody comes in for a building permit application, that will save a whole lot of time and energy on the part of not only our team, but the applicant's team as well. So if we get all the information on the front end, that's what we would identify as being successful for permit applications. So we're modifying that right now, expanding that to include more disciplines, but also making it faster, done within a couple of days. We were targeting 15 days, but we're basically doing those as they come in now. Our organizational structure adjustments that we made last year, we've got some little tweaks that we have to do to that. So we're in process on that. We're working with the budgets cycle right now. We're working on fee alignment with council direction for cost recovery. So we've realized that we're not at 100% cost recovery, and we need to move that direction as directed by council here. So we are working on that. So we're also expanding dashboard use. So if you go online, we've got certain dashboards that tell external customers kind of where your permit is at in review. We also have internal dashboards that talk about our efficiencies and our productivity, and so we're expanding the use of those. It'll just results will be better transparency externally and internally, and increase our productivity. We're doing a lot of technology research right now, realizing that our permitting system is now 20-some years old. How do we make that more modern? So we're looking at internal and external options for permitting software and efficiencies that can be gained there. We're living in a world right now where AI is expanding our horizons, I guess is one way to put it. And it's something that if we don't embrace that and look for those efficiencies and apply them to what we're doing, basically add it to our toolbox, we're going to be finding ourselves behind in the industry. So we're actively looking at that, including one of the items I put out there is some generative AI software. There's some different jurisdictions that are beta testing that right now, and we're watching that closely to see exactly how we can implement that, and is that something that we can utilize ourselves. So that's all I have in terms of presentation today, but a few moments for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kinley. I appreciate your presentation. And did I hear you right? You've been here for 10 months.
Been here 10 months, sir. Yes.
Okay. And are there any questions? Committee Member Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple questions. Thanks for the presentation. You talked about what you're doing to improve what you guys can do. I kind of wanted to know, does Pierce County have any unique zoning laws or building codes or environmental regulations that differ from other neighboring counties that may affect the whole package? I mean, talking unique.
Yeah, unique. I would say, I think all of our zoning laws, each jurisdiction, are fairly unique because they're designed around our communities. And so all of our different community plans do have some unique, different zoning requirements, unique setbacks, those types of things that we would have to look at. Nothing stands out as being like exceptionally unique based on my experience in working in other jurisdictions. A lot of what we do is baseline. That's you know, in order for us to comply with state regulations, our environmental regulations, Growth Management Act, you know, all the zoning requirements that come along with that. So it's pretty well, it's fairly boilerplate, but again, the community plans are fairly unique. And I think I would defer to my long range planning colleagues to go into any greater detail on that. But in terms of difficulty of applying things, I've not been made aware of anything by our staff. So.
And if I may, a second question, real quick. Does Pierce County have a more extensive community engagement process for certain projects that could affect timelines? An example would be like, you know, tribal engagement.
Mm-hmm. I think that there
compared
are
to our neighbors.
Yeah, I think we do have one unique thing that we do have that we've introduced in the last couple of years is our county archaeologist belongs within development services, and he does a lot of collaboration with the tribes, especially when it comes to cultural resource protections. So that's one thing that I would identify as being unique in my experience. It's something that I think all counties and cities are being required to address those things at this point in time. So that is, but it's something newer, definitely, for sure. In terms of our community engagement, I think our land use advisory commissions are unique. Not all counties or cities engage the public in that manner to have community input on land use actions, conditional use permits, those types of things. Or variances. But the public hearings that the hearing examiner conducts are standard. Okay,
thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for those questions. Okay, Vice Chair Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. I did log into your online permit dashboard right now. I have a couple of questions based on that. First of all, very impressive. Whoever put that together or made that happen, that's phenomenal. There were three questions related to the dashboard. In it, there's one section that says permit application review dates, and it has residential team, A or B, with X amount of applications, and then now reviewing insert date.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about what that date really means or how that process flow goes?
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It's something that we are working on right now, because what that does is it latches on to the oldest permit in that team. So it's not necessarily representative of exactly where we're at in terms of review. We're trying to figure out a better way to do that, and there's definitely software limitations in how we can pull data out of our system and present that. So most of our permits are not at that point. That could be, I asked a question on one a couple of months ago, like, what is this permit that's way out there? The answer was it was a customer information meeting that somebody applied for, and then we send them an email saying, go pick a date, go to our Microsoft booking site and pick a date, and the customer had never done that, and so it was still sitting there, and it was like from last summer, so it was definitely throwing our data off. So it's something that we are when I bring up, like, we're working on the dashboards, that's one thing that I want to do, is to provide better data that will help people, because they start calling us, and it would be great if we could provide that information to where they don't need to call us to get that information. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
2 more questions, Chair, if I may. Sure. Under special notes, there was a pick the staff section. Tell us a little bit about what that means.
I don't know what that is. I'll have to look that up. I'm sorry. It says, what is it? What exactly does it say?
It says pick the staff. It leads me to believe that I can pick what staff member I want to work with. I'm not sure if that's the intention, but I was just a little curious about that.
That might be a holdover. I'm not sure, but I know that it used to be that you could request a staff meeting with whoever you wanted, and it was my impression that was something that we weren't doing at this point in time. You can still pick. I believe when you do a customer information meeting, you're going to get everybody, like all the different disciplines. So there's no real checking that occurs on those anymore. So.
And then there is a video Skype service also available?
For inspections, yes. Yeah, we still do the video inspections, and they're for certain types of inspections, re-inspection of minor items, those types of things. So, but it's something that I believe the inspector has to say, yeah, you can do this by video inspection. So
that's wonderful. And then last note, I just want to say currently there is a note that says the average wait time is 4 minutes with one customer waiting. I think in the spirit of transparent data, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's our lobby wait statistics, and our goal is no more than 15 minutes, and I believe we're in the 10 to 14 minute range on average. So it looks like it's a light day today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Or at least it could be just early. Yeah.
Thank you for those questions. Committee Member Denson, did you have a question?
Thank you for being here, and thank you for all your work building efficiency. I know it's complicated. So I just had a couple questions, kind of building off some of the questions from Councilmember Ayala. Do you have policies or kind of benchmarks for response times when individuals email you or call you? I got cornered the other day with somebody who was frustrated they weren't hearing back, and I don't know what their issue was, but could you just respond to that?
I do get those complaints from time to time as well. Yeah, it's 48 hours is our benchmark for response.
Okay.
Whether that's a phone call or email.
Yeah, and even if you don't have the answer, just at least a response and acknowledging that email or call has been received. And
I do recognize that some staff have higher volume of email and phone traffic than others, so that can be difficult at times. One of the things we do is we have our of the days, so a planner of the day, engineer of the day, and that's a good way to get your answers because they have a 24-hour response on that. So, for example, today I was talking to the planner of the day before I was heading out, and he'll be there all day today doing lobby service. But also, along with that, are emails that come into that general inbox and then phone calls that come into the general voicemail box. And sometimes it takes up to a day and a half for them to get through all of that day's requests, whether that be in person, phone call, or email. So, but 48 hours is what we request our staff in terms of, like, if you're just sending email to your planner on your project, we want them to turn that around in 48 hours.
Okay, that's great. And we've been really, really happy with the planner of the day. Whoever that is, we send a lot of people, and sometimes it's super simple questions that they're able to answer. Yeah. So we really appreciate that. The other question is, I know with the WIP, you kind of restructured things so into these teams, residential, commercial, all of that. Yeah. I'm curious, when do these teams get together and how does that happen? Is there a schedule or is it Zoom or is it in person?
So we have a weekly team meetings where it's all done virtually, but the folks that are assigned to certain permits, when they have collaboration, they know exactly who to communicate with on that. It's actually an improvement we've made since January, because the way we had structured it made it very difficult to see who was assigned other than just the team. So not just externally, but internally. So that was a change that I made in January, working very well now. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for those questions. Councilmember Krueger has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are kind of rather concerned around flexibility, in that I know that there are some old school builders that don't do computers and whatnot. Do you still have access for working with those kinds of builders?
Yeah, I just had somebody drop off a drainage plan the other day in paper. We scan it in and put it into the permit for them in the development center. So anybody who does not have the technology, they can come into the development center, and we will take everything they have in paper, we'll scan it in, and then we'll convert it.
Take care of that. Good. The other, do you work on policies? Because for me, the bottom line is, how do you get to go? How do you get the plans to work? And if, oh shoot, my train of thought. I'm thinking, because a lot of the zoning codes may not be palatable to what can be done there. For example, I had a constituent who wanted to put in like a high-end vehicle type business in an area, but they couldn't because it wasn't zoned for that. But they could do a pot shop. And if there's an area where it's apartments only, and it won't pencil out. It wasn't figured in the plans, but townhouses could work, but that's not zoned that way. Is there maybe in the works thoughts of how to make that easier to make the adjustments rather than having to go through great expense of time and money to do what's right?
That's slightly outside my wheelhouse, because that gets into the policy and law side of things. So I think I'd like to get that answer for you rather than try to answer that for you right now.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Any more committee members want to ask follow-up? If not, then I will ask the last series of questions. You can't leave yet. But anyway, welcome to the team, and look forward to working with you in the future. As you know, and Ms. Fleminster knows that, believe it or not, you are the economic arm of the county, and you serve a diverse customer base. Everything that Councilmember Krueger said, someone who brings, wants to build a carport and doesn't want to hire an engineer to do it, and how do you get them versus what you'll hear from our panel. But all of them, they are your customers.
Absolutely.
And you have to, and I know that as culture changes, as shift changes with leadership, when I first came on the council 6 years ago, it was the Red Tape Reduction Committee that looked at a lot of existing policies that we went through and changed and kind of reinvented the delivery system. But as we have done that, there seems to be more and more environmental constraints and requirements that are put on the developers to work around SEPA,
Yeah, this is true.
Now we have critical areas, type F streams and, all this other, and I think Committee Member Herrera also stated something which since I have been here, I've seen this evolution of the historical, cultural, archaeological aspect of this has just expanded. And, it is just seems to be adding some time and dollars for people, especially on landowners that aren't anywhere near any, Native American tribal area grounds, but yet they have to spend the money, check the box, and do it before we kind of said, okay, go check this out, and as long as you're okay, you're okay. But we can't do that anymore. I was on a project, and this is King County, but it was the expansion of the White River Foothills Bridge, and they were next to the White River, and they had to take a track hoe, dig down 6 inches, have a consultant on site that would look at what they got in that bucket and said, yeah, you can dump it in the truck. It added a month and a half to just do a small portion of the trail. And it was just, I couldn't believe it. But, there again, that was a regulation that the contractor had to abide by. They didn't find anything, but, someone got a job out of that. But I just think some of those, I understand the sensitivity of it, but, the putting these stacked requirements, as you understand, just add to the cost of housing or whatever else we do around here. And buildable land is becoming less and less available. And I think in my district, Tahali has the only 40 acres of developable property left in the UGA that you don't have to take out, other structures to be able to redevelop. But, I just, and I appreciate what Ms. Flemister said, that she is open and willing to listen to this panel. And I hope that there again, we're receptive, we analyze how we do it, the processes that we use, the understanding that the old analogy, time is money. And, you are looking at trying to, make the department, run in the black, as it were, in the business world. But, there needs to be incentives that drive that, and those incentives mean to me you got to turn out permits in a timely manner. And I know you understand that, and I just bringing that home and looking forward to the engagement of, now that we have new leadership in the county.
Yep.
You'll have a new director, and we'll see how things go. But that's, I guess, the message that I want to bring to you. And this council is more than willing to work with you on a policy basis. It's just we need to understand and know what we can or cannot do because we are in a housing crisis. And so with that being said, I think we'll let you off the hook.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Erica Rett, Hunt.
Okay, so at this point, I would like to bring up our panelists. And panelists, I'm going to give just the briefest of introductions to you. We have Kurt Wilson of Sound Built Homes. If you would please come, we have name tags here. We have Dennis Ratty of Tarragon, and we have Travis Hale and Brian Matson of Panatone Development Company. And our panelists are here, and the first thing we're going to ask them to do is we're going to ask them to introduce themselves and the company that they work for. and to talk a little bit about projects that they do in Pierce County, the types of projects they do in Pierce County and other places around the state. And then each of them has prepared a permitting timeline for a project in Pierce County that they'd like to introduce for discussion amongst the panel and the committee. So with that, Mr. Wilson, I'd like you to go first, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, committee members, for putting this together and inviting us here today to share with you our experience in working in Pierce County. My name is Kurt Wilson with Sound Built Homes, a builder developer, mostly residential, do a little bit of commercial. And I've had the privilege of being the co-chair for over a decade now of the various committees that started out as the Red Tape Reduction Committee, and then was the BPA Committee, and then also the latest WIP Committee as the developer representative. So we've got a lot of experience working with staff as we've had change in leadership and continue to work on helping the county create efficiencies through its processes. So thank you.
Is there a particular order, or is it?
Oh, we can just go right down the line.
Perfect.
Oh, and Mr. Wilson, do you want to talk a little bit on the screen?
Oh.
Brian put up your timeline if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, sure.
So let's just clarify, these are actual projects?
Yes, this is an actual project.
Okay, in Pierce County. Okay, great. Thank you.
So Perimeter Point is a project that's out in Spanaway, Perimeter Road, near the Joint Base Lewis McCord. It's a project that does not have sewer service there currently. It was originally contemplated to be a septic community, which would have been about 2.5 units per acre. After the Falling Water project up in Bonnie Lake went through with a new technology, sewer technology, that basically is a mini treatment plant that then disperses effluent to a large drain field, became an accepted practice in the county, and the county liked how it was functioning. We looked at that process here, which basically allows us to use the land more efficiently and do 6 units per acre. It's a much higher cost to put this type of system in, but what it allows us to do is put sewer infrastructure in the neighborhood, have quite a large upfront cost to actually treat the effluent, and in a kind of we're thinking somewhere between 5 and 10 year period before sewers get extended to that area, and that can be taken offline. But the real point I wanted to make here is that the creativity and the flexibility with the sewer utility to be open to these technologies on an interim basis allowed us to use that land more effectively inside the UGA and do what the ultimate zoning would allow if sewers were there. And so kudos to the county in working through that. I laid out here a time frame that kind of to illustrate for you what I went through from, the site, having gone through due diligence with a number of other folks prior to me, not being able to make it work in pencil, to me getting creative during the feasibility and having these conversations, meeting with the sewer utility up in Falling Water, looking at that system and really figuring out how I can make it work, and then getting the head nod from the sewer utility that yes, we could do something like that here, even though it's permitted through the State Department of Health. As a large on-site septic system. And what I want to illustrate here is, while that is a challenging component, I actually was able to get the health department, the most complicated issue, addressed first and approved first in the timeline of approvals. And so the introduction of this kind of unique situation, even by doing that, I was able to have that piece of it approved, and I was still waiting for off-site approvals, particularly as it related to an arterial and street lighting and trying to fit in this frontage improvement that was in an existing neighborhood infill where there was other improvements that I needed to tie into. And so going through starting at the feasibility, going through our land use approval process like we typically would do, submit our applications and going through the SEPA environmental review. It actually went fairly smooth, even though we had, as was brought up earlier, a LUAC meeting to attend, which is an extra step, time consuming, scheduling, this adds to the process. We actually got through this in a fairly condensed time frame relative to past projects. So once we got our SEPA determination, we kind of jumped ahead and started our civil engineering design because we really knew what the issues were that we were going to be addressing. So we had a little bit of a jump so that as soon as we had the hearing examiner's decision, we were able to submit engineering. But we got stuck in that engineering rut that all projects in Pierce County get stuck in. And Pierce County is not unique. I want to make that clear. All jurisdictions are challenged with engineering review. However, we seem to be going back, regressing a little bit and going back to some silos that we broke down through the BPA process years ago. And that is, traffic, sewer, the county engineer, and then development engineering at the review level. And so that has caused us some challenges, and I'm hopeful that as we work through this with the new leadership and we get the new director on board, and we look at these efficiencies, that we're able to flush out some of those challenges that developers are having with delays and some of those what I like to call silos. But overall, I just wanted to illustrate, it's a long process to bring housing online. In this, you're looking at over 3-year period, 3.5 years, just to get to a point where we can build our model homes. That is a fairly normal process and probably on the kind of the median. Many projects take much longer to get to that point. And we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and that is to meet the code requirements and get through the process that we will ultimately get approved for to be able to build those homes. And so how we do it, we have been a part of these processes for 10 years, and we still have not gotten to the point of being able to deliver on a predictable, timely permit process. And that's what the current staff is trying to do, past staff has tried to do, but we have not been able to do it. And you'll hear a lot of discussion today, but that is the paramount issue. As customers in this county, we are not here to cut corners, rape and pillage the land, any of that stuff that everybody thinks that we do. We're here to provide economic development, provide housing to the community, provide commercial buildings that provide jobs, all of the above. And at some point, permits have to get issued. So the culture of permit facilitation instead of regulator, we've come a long way through these processes and leadership changes to cultivate staff to get that mindset changed. But I brought an exhibit today that I wanted to show you. The 1984 zoning and platting ordinances for the city of Tacoma. So if you look out these windows, many of these buildings were built well before 1984. But in 1984, this is what was used to guide us through the development process. And buildings aren't falling down, streets aren't sinking into the ground, things are functioning. So it's just a kind of a litmus test as you think about the mountains of code that staff has to administer with every application that goes through the door. How much of that adds value? How much of it is feel good, just stuff? As was mentioned earlier, the layered regulation is what kills us. And that's what really hampers and handcuffs staff, I believe, to get through those reviews in a timely manner. And they could get through this stuff if they didn't have to keep back checking, because nobody can keep these tens of thousands of pages of regulations and standards in their mind, no matter how many projects they reviewed. There's just a mountain of regulations and design standards in this jurisdiction that are, I feel for staff. So, thank you.
Mr. Wood, how many homes were built on this
We're
project?
under construction right now. There's 60 homes.
Okay,
on 10.
thank you. Ratty?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. My name is Dennis Ratty. I'm the president of Tarragon. We're a Puget Sound-based real estate developer and owner of real estate assets. We're relatively unique because we kind of play in all the different arenas in terms of asset classes. In Pierce County, just in unincorporated Pierce County right now, I think we have just over 500 multifamily units in some stage of entitlement and permitting. A little over 400,000 square feet of industrial in the permitting process. Roughly 3,000 residential lots in some stage of entitlement or permitting or construction. And then in retail, we have roughly 200,000 square feet that is entitled and would be geared up to go into the permitting process if there were users available. And there's a sample project up here. I think Kurt's way more into the details than I am. I operate off we have development managers and development associates that do a lot of the day-to-day work that are kind of in the grind, if you will, of trying to make projects happen. But I just tried to grab one project to kind of show an example of the timeline. We're working on a master plan community on the South Hill. It's called Uplands. It's about 1,100, a combination of residential lots and 4 rent townhome units. Currently under construction. We've delivered, by the end of this year, we'll have delivered 300 single-family lots to the market, and we currently have this project under construction, which is an 86-unit townhome. Just made it through the preliminary plat process for the second phase, which will be, this sits on 240 acres. The second phase will bring another 700 plus residential lots and units. This is called Embark. Its permit name is Uplands Townhomes, but now it's been branded as Embark at Uplands. This is an 86-unit townhome project, and this is in an existing planned development district approval, so there was no land use process attached to this. This is from day one of permit to when we actually had all permits, and we kind of isolated it into the 3 permit categories: site development, sewer line extension, and building permit. And I apologize that the way this came out, it's not the scale isn't accurate. You have to look at the dates to really zero in on kind of where time passed. And we'll start with the site, and what you'll see here is building is highly efficient in terms of, but you can't have a building permit until you have site development and sewer. So let's start with building as an example. We made our submittal. The first round of comments came out in, I think, roughly, basically, we got through the process in about 30 days. Just to give you a context of this is 86 units. It sits on a little over 8 acres. It's 25 residential buildings, because it's 3 and 4 units, which the zoning requires, and no more than 4 units in a building. It's got 3 accessory buildings, which would be a clubhouse and maintenance. The site was mass graded as part of the original PDD. All frontage approvals were done, and utilities were stubbed to the property. So this is about as clean of a project that you can step into. Sorry, I jumped back up to site development. So we made our submittal in June of 2022, and we got our first round of comments in 4 months. Took us 30 days, roughly a month, to turn around those comments, and it took us another 4 months of review. Then we went to our third submittal, and that was another 2 months. And usually by the time you're at the third submittal, you're down to looking at something at a tenth of an inch or something like that. So at that point, for comparison, a lot of jurisdictions will issue approved as noted, and then you pick up those changes in your engineered as-builts. But the county system currently works, we have to go to the 4th submittal. And when you go to that 4th submittal, we may be talking about 3 changes. You go back into the queue, and it could be up to 2 months before you get a correction on those 3 minor changes.
So the total time frame, as you can see on the site development permit, was 357 days. The proverbial ball was in our court for 67 of those, and in the counties for 290. Then you go down to the sewer line extension permit. Now, again, mind you, this is a sewer line that it's not even entering the right of way. It's access to another sewer line that we had constructed that it's connecting to. So in that case, the sewer line, we make the submittal, 4 months for review. 30-day turnaround, 2 months for review. 30-day turnaround, another 2 months. And the big thing on sewer is the sewer, Pierce County has a single, so by the time we got the permit, this would say, I guess I'm roughly 350 days, let's call it. The county has a single source provider for, they're called GU liners. They're liners that go into the sewer catch basins. Single source provider. So here we are, we've gone all this time to get permit approval. The lead time on those liners was 132 days. So here we have an approved permit, but you can't actually start installing. We don't get the product for another 3.5 months. Now, I understand there's some things that are happening now to change, move away from just the single source provider in a more efficient way, but that's kind of what we've been dealing with to date. On the building permit side, as you see, again, we were held up. So you look at the difference there. We got through the first review in 30 days with relatively clean comments, but we basically sat for 300 days until all of the other stuff was done. Because we can't pull a building, because it wouldn't make sense for us to go do it if we're not going to get it approved at building. If all of a sudden through the process buildings have to move, and you're basically sitting. You're sitting waiting on that, on site development and sewer line extension. That has always kind of been the challenge, as Kurt mentioned. And I again appreciate it's very complicated, but it just seems that it needs to be more efficient. And again, so this is 86 townhome units, start to finish. We started, again, no entitlements. If you added entitlements, that'd probably be another, land use would be 12 to 18 months probably. But let's just say from this June 2022 deadline of making our initial permit application, the first units will be delivered in July of 2025. So 3 years for us. Ironically, we got our permits issued, I think, December 1st, and we'll deliver the first units in July of this December 1st last year. So like 8 months, start to finish, we'll deliver it. We can execute. We just need to have more efficiency in the process.
Thank you.
And actually, we were provided questions and stuff. I can kind of address those as we come around. Is that
okay? We'll circle back after everyone has a chance to present their project. So, Mr. Hale.
Thank you very much. Thank you, council members, and inviting us here. We really appreciate it. This is a great avenue for us to get out and talk in front of you. We do industrial development. Like the others have mentioned, we got housing here. We got, Dennis certainly does all food groups, so we appreciate him for that. We do industrial development, and which is kind of an economic generator for us and provide the jobs in the communities. I've sat in front of you and spoken about the Tahali development, trying to locate buildings where the people live. So that's something we feel passionate about. We feel like it's needed. We don't want Pierce County to lose their jobs to King County, to Thurston County, to other jurisdictions. So we like to build in the communities where the people live. The new thing for industrial development is to build where people are. Labor, labor, labor. It's turned into the #1 rule. It used to be location, location, location. Now it's labor, labor, labor. So we're all about trying to build where people live and trying to provide those jobs. Pierce County is one of the best counties to do that in. I'm a local Pierce County guy, born and raised here. Dad was worked for Pierce County, so it's near and dear to my heart. He was part of the original PAL system that was created as the IT director way back when. So I remember that very vividly. I love PALS, but it is 20-some years old. I think I was in freshman in high school when it was developed, so a long time ago. We build in Washington, Oregon, Idaho. So I just did some numbers. We have 21 jurisdictions that we're building in right now, about 11.5 million square feet. We've got 8.5 under planning. Those are in 9 additional jurisdictions. So we have 30 different jurisdictions we are dealing with in our local office in Tacoma. Some have good things and some have challenging things. So there's always room for improvement. I think Pierce County's come a long ways, and we're doing a lot better than we were during COVID. If we were to put up some of the timeframes from 2019 and 2020, 2021, at least even for industrial, a SEPA process was almost 12 months. We've cut that down significantly. So I think there's a lot of things that have happened good on that side. However, there's always room for improvement. There are sticky points that are mentioned. Brian Mattson here is our senior development manager who works on the majority of our complicated projects. He is the one that can speak more to the time frames and the actual requirements for them. But just in general, I wanted to touch on, maybe if we skip to our Fred 310 project, which is one of his. This project, those are all the projects we've done in Pierce County. We've done 9 projects in the last 5 years, about 8.3 million square feet. So we've got a good experience in Pierce County. You go to the next slide. This is our Fred 310 project, 3.9 million square feet. Brian entitled it. We bought it unentitled, which is extremely risky. Got it entitled, and then went through the process. We're going to talk about that. We've built all the buildings in the lower half. The 2 top buildings in light blue will go this year. But out of all these buildings, we've leased to Floor and Decor, about 175 jobs. We've got GE Appliance and COA in Building D there. COA is an interesting story that came in through the Pierce County Economic Development Committee. And we landed it, 317,000 square feet, advanced manufacturing, exactly what people want. That is going into Building D. It would not have happened without the building being up and vertical and without us building spec. But a huge feather in Pierce County's cap for winning that deal, and Brian winning it. Building E, which is Harbor Freight, there's about 180 jobs in that building, which is the very bottom building. So that's a great building for the county as well. Building G has yet to be leased. So anyway, just a very, very good project and successful project for us. The next thing is our permitting time frames, and Brian can speak more to this. But we have 2 different permit time frames, both in Pierce County. And what we want to do is compare a normal straight over tackle project and what you can kind of expect. Next slide, please. And this is called Canyon 160. It's on 160th and Canyon Road. And this project is normal. There was no special treatment. It was essentially a greenfield site on a hard corner there, and it took us 31 months here to permit this, and that's a long period of time in our book. But do you want to mention anything? Okay.
No.
Okay. I'll move on to the next one here. The county has this thing called executive priority for commercial buildings, and Fred 310 fell into this executive priority. My point in bringing this up is this is probably some of the things that we need to work on is moving the normal permitting to executive priority. And executive priority is a program that Pierce County offers to developments that create jobs, to developments that are good for economic development. And it comes with additional touch points with Dave and his group and the county staff. We're able to pick up the phone and actually call. We're able to break through the log jams. We're able to see that, hey, this permit's been sitting there for 6 weeks and it should have been 4 weeks. What do we do to move that? And maybe Brian can talk more on the executive priority and how you qualify and what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian Mattson with Panatone Development. I work with Travis in our Tacoma office. I've been working on the Fred 310 site since spring of 2021. As Travis mentioned, we closed on the land unentitled, which is extremely risky in our world. But we've been successful, as Travis mentioned. And with respect to the executive priority program, it feels like it needs to be expanded or become more of the norm for how the county handles projects. And I get that it's staff related, headcount related, but this example on the screen here is of our Harbor Freight building, where we had actually entitled two separate smaller buildings on the lot, and then Harbor Freight came along, and we actually were in for permits on those two separate buildings. Harbor Freight came along and, had a larger need, and so we essentially scrapped those plans, went back to the county with an entirely new site development plan and entirely new building permit plan, and as you can see, we were able to turn those in 2 and 3 months.
Yeah, the total time frame there is 22 months. So executive priority with the change of plans, cut the 31 months from a straight over tackle linear process. With the executive priority, we're able to do that in 22 months. So that's, and what do you get out of the executive priority process?
Well, you get shorter time frames. I want to say the targeted turnaround times on initial submittal, and I could be off on my statistics here, but it was either 20 or 15 days. And then on subsequent submittals, it was like a week and a half, 7 or 8 days. I don't know that there's any stated literature about this, but that's, what the staff had shared as far as what their targets were. And very often they hit those.
And when we won the Best Buy and Ashley Furniture deals out there, those are both also executive priority. We were, the staff allowed us bi-weekly meetings during the permit process. So every other week, we were able to sit around the table at the planning annex over there and meet with everyone. So you had the fire marshal there, you had engineering there, you had traffic there, you had everyone around the table, as well as your team, and you're able to break through some of these log jams. But
yeah, that's a good point. Throughout the project, we had a standing meeting with the staff. That was planning, engineering, sewer, everybody on a biweekly basis, and it allowed us to, just circle back with them and communicate. Okay, here's what's coming down the pipeline, because there's multiple buildings. There's probably in the neighborhood of 80 permits related to this project, and so we would manage our own list of those, track those, prioritize those for the staff. So it was a real collaborative process that worked fantastic for us on that project. So that's just some raw feedback from us on how good it can be. And Travis, to your point, I think if we look back 5 years ago, it was tough sledding to get through the permitting process. And so I always say, Pierce County has improved vastly over the last 5 years on the time frames. There's still, horror stories out there about really extended time frames. There was a comment made earlier, I think, in David's presentation about staff authority, and that's huge, because the worst thing for us is when we have a question for a staff member. Can we do this? This is maybe a little, outside the norm, and they have to go back and talk to 5 different people to get approval to do it. One example I had on that was the Floor and Decor building, which is the 1.1 million square footer out there. We were kind of caught up in this sewer main debate, and that was kind of holding up our site development permit. Meanwhile, the clock's ticking for me on the lease to get the building delivered, and so I was able to discuss with the staff that, hey, issue me the building permit ahead of the site development permit. I know that's backwards. That I want to do that at my risk. That's on us. We're taking the risk that the building's not going to have to move. We're taking the risk that there could be implications to the building permit based on the outcome of the sewer and site development permits. And they were willing to issue it, and we were able to get going, and it worked out fine. And so the point is they were flexible, they were creative, and they had the authority to help me with the timelines, overlap some of those.
Another thing to hit on
items.
that authority thing, though, is the engineer of record, and we've touched on this, is we're designing it. They should be, verifying it's approved and we're doing it correctly versus them trying to actually redesign it at the table for themselves. Well, we send things in and then it gets redesigned from our engineers by the staff.
Kurt, you mentioned the 10,000 pages of code and regulations, and we're not trying to cut corners. Nobody's trying to cut corners, but if you step back, at least on the engineering and the building side, our consultants are the engineers of record, not the staff. And so the staff doesn't really need to check every single little finite detail in those plans, because ultimately, if something doesn't comply with Pierce County, it's on us and the engineer of record. So that concept, I think could be communicated to the staff that, we don't need to do all the engineering for the customer. The customer is providing the engineering. You're making sure that it checks some key guidelines and then get it issued.
Can I just add to that before I lose this thought? One thing I wanted to share with you guys, and I've talked about this for years with staff, I would submit that there's very little, if any, added value for engineering time to be spent on these guys' projects. What they predominantly build is on their property, and it's all private. What I build predominantly gets turned over to the public. And what I mean by that is, why do we spend, well, it's down now, 12, 18 months tying up engineers' time reviewing parking lots, stall widths, stall depths, access around the building for truck maneuverability and all these things that are really the market, right? These guys are going to own and operate these things. And in the end, the county's risk is its NPDES permit with ecology to make sure that the stormwater is designed and discharging to a point that is legal and it complies with the pre-developed rates. That's a very limited review. Then the point where it connects to public sewer, and if there's any frontage improvements or off-site improvements in the public right-of-way, that's where it should stop. And this council has the ability to tell staff, we can do this and we can accept a stamp from a professional engineer for work on private property for private improvements. That is a solution that would take a tremendous amount of work out of development engineering's pipeline. And today, I mean, in the end, the county will not sign off and say, we're signing off on that permit if it doesn't meet the code and the requirements, but all it's doing is transferring that risk to the developer and its engineer for compliance at the end of the project. And then it allows the development engineering folks to focus on the public infrastructure and the stuff that's ultimately going to be in the public's interest for long-term ownership, maintenance, and operation. So I just wanted to make that comment because it's been a real thorn in my side. I can't seem to get that point across. And it defies logic because
the development engineering's time is best served heavily scrutinizing public improvements. So as part of the Fred 310 project, we, I think, deployed $47 million in infrastructure improvements in the way of roads, sewer mains. We built a rail bridge out there for grade separated crossing.
Highway on-ramp, freeway on-ramp.
Yeah, we widened the 512 Canyon Road off-ramp from the eastbound side. But the point I think you're making is the stuff that's going to be deeded to the county, the public improvements, that's where the engineer's time is best spent, heavily scrutinizing those engineering plans.
I'd like to jump in on this also. I didn't know about this executive priority thing.
Sorry.
I take it your companies have not had the privilege of the executive priority.
Well, I was gonna, can you? Yeah. I can say. I guess maybe we had it indirectly, and you made a statement that things are call it better today than they were 5 years ago. I would say the opposite, and so maybe I was getting executive priority 5, 6, 7 years ago. The Uplands project is accessed through Sunrise, so there was and our access was controlled by Sunrise for an extended period of time until we effectively entered into a tri-party agreement with the county, Sunrise, and ourselves to facilitate that access. So during the course of that occurring, we actually had monthly meetings with various staff, traffic, development engineering, occasionally Dennis Hamburg made an appearance. But it was very focused on resolving issues and driving things forward. That went away. We actually have even approached the county several years ago about us paying for a what do you call it, a staff period? Yeah, no, a staff person. Hire an engineer, put them on the county staff. We'll pay for it, but we want them dedicated to Uplands because we're processing. I'm not sure if I mentioned this. That 86 townhome project is 128 permits. That's more than double a similar project in another jurisdiction. And again, that's not even addressing. At Uplands right now, we have like 5 different projects going. I've got 7 people on site every day. We're moving 900,000 yards of material under mass grading. We're extending arterials. We're building feeder roads. We're developing lots. We're building a massive clubhouse. We're building townhomes. There's a lot going on out there. And if we actually had a permit facilitator, somebody on that side of the proverbial fence that could maneuver things through, huge benefit. Actually, it would be a huge benefit to us for sure, but to the county as well, just to keep things moving.
I think maybe we've been trained how to deal with it, so that's why we feel it's gotten better. But yeah we were well trained. Yeah, peer review is a huge tool that other jurisdictions do, and we have 80 permits on this. But I think I would say that Brian's got another project up north in the Marysville, Arlington area, and those 80 permits are probably half of that, maybe even less than that.
Oh, way less.
15, yeah. I think you said.
Even less.
And
it's a multi-story, huge development.
And just for the committee to understand, what is your investment into Fred 310? What do you have sitting on the table to just get to where you're at right now?
Meaning dollars wise?
Yeah, dollar wise.
Millions and millions of dollars.
700 million.
That's just in. It's 200 million just to buy the land, and then probably about total project cost will be 1.9 billion at the end of the day. Yep.
Oh,
it's a big project.
Yeah,
it's a lifetime project. It's not something we do every day, and it's a big one.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood.
Yeah, that's without building A and B up there as well.
Okay. Okay. Does that close out your presentation?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to committee members for questions, talk. Committee member Yombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a question. If there's any differences in developing new areas versus redeveloping or redevelopment. And, because a lot of our county's vision for growth is in areas like the central county area, and it, has redevelopment. I'm from Fife. We have a lot of, we don't have much developable land, but then, a lot of it is redeveloping what's already there. So just curious if there's differences.
You'd like to go from the industrial side on redevelopment?
Sure.
it's challenging to redevelop land when you can, if you have an existing building, you could almost knock the rent 30% off and lease the thing. So why would you redevelop it? So you see that in South Seattle. South Seattle is a prime example of location. You would think it would get redeveloped because of all those functionally obsolete buildings. Why doesn't it? Because those landlords can lease them out for 60 to 70 cents, 70% of market, and still make money. Versus scraping it and then building anew. So it's an interesting dilemma. We get approached all the time to redevelop land and find value add. But most often you'll see in the industry we say, just put some lipstick on it or make it look pretty, and you lease it up. So unfortunately, the redevelopment is a very, very tall bar, and it's very expensive. Public usually helps with redevelopment. So like a transit-oriented station or something like that.
I'd say from the residential side, you're going to hit the nail on the head. Most of the infill development in the land that we have left has some element of redevelopment. So that highlights why timelines are so important, because it's so hard to get new building lots to market, which we can ultimately build homes on, because we have the challenges, the available land, and not just the available land that's in your buildable lands, because it assumes a lot of redevelopment. It's getting a willing seller that actually finds value in selling above what their current use is or their current valuation to be able to convince them to sell, right? That's a huge obstacle just to put that land into a buildable land. So there's this false assumption in your buildable lands that it's all available today and we can just go start buying stuff up. We can't do that. You have to get, if you could find a 5-acre piece for residential in the MSF zone, well, if it's got a $500,000 house sitting just spot in the middle of it that you can't build roads around and salvage it and make it part of the community, it's an obstacle. It's not a reasonable assumption that it's redevelopable anytime soon. And so while utilities might be there and it might be, flat and in a great area, it's hamstrung because of that existing improvement that has value above and beyond, or that has to be accounted for somehow. So
it needs to be placed at land value. In order to redevelop it, best case in our market, even Pierce County, is the Intel campus in DuPont. That was, two 315,000 square foot, beautiful flash cube office buildings that Intel had, and they were sold. They were vacant. One was built last in 2013 even. It was pretty recent or something like that. We came in, and we didn't, but the industrial market came in and demolished them, tore these beautiful buildings down and put industrial on it, because the value of the land, the value of the office buildings were nothing. Suburban office is redevelopment opportunities, unfortunately. But as long as that redevelopment is price associated, meaning the land seller, like Kurt was saying, is low enough to make redevelopment possible, then it works. And correction, Front 310 is about $1 billion. I know I'm on the record.
So he's rounding up again.
I was just way rounding up. That was
okay.
I unfortunately missed that one. So.
Thank you for that correction.
Quick enough.
He didn't elbow you. Okay. Anyone else want to handle that one? Okay. Any follow-up, council member? Okay. Committee member Herrera.
Thank you, Chair, and it's great to have you here as a panel and hearing each individual's problem statements with your business, and then some solutions also. I heard someone talk about a peer review and how that might help. Just because I'm not that educated, what does that sound like, or what does that mean? A peer review.
So a lot of jurisdictions that don't have staffing during times allow us to peer review. So they'll go out. For instance, we'll have our civil engineer of record that designs our buildings, and then the county will have a peer review, meaning a third party or an outside civil engineer that the county then goes and hires. So when they don't have the staff, or the municipality is not large enough, some municipalities are 100% peer review. They just don't have, they're not big like Pierce County is. And so then usually they push the cost onto the developer. They hire, but we pay for the peer review, and it speeds up the process. So then you have engineer talking to engineer, third-party engineers talking to third-party engineers.
So is that happening here in Pierce County with specific projects, or not at all?
No, not at all.
It's basically outsourcing.
We have it on a number of projects also. Again,
that tends to surface in smaller jurisdictions that don't have the resources. And we actually have it occurring in 2 locations. And as a good example, the 10 Trails development, the large housing development in Black Diamond, almost all of that is done peer review.
I'd say the county is doing a little bit of outsourcing, which is a function of peer review, tending to a third party. However, the reason that, well, I think it works, when they have done it with building, it's worked really well. I think of other facets, it's not worked so well. And the reason it fails in jurisdictions on the civil side is because of the thought that, well, we're sending it out, but we still have to review their comments. That's not how peer review works. You sign a contract with somebody that says you shall review against our standards, and that's your job. You're taking the risk. But when a jurisdiction says we're going to outsource or allow peer review, but we got to be still the guard and oversee those comments and have our finger in it, it breaks down and it doesn't work. So it's either all in or it's all outsourced through a peer review process, or it's not. You can't have a hybrid work effectively.
And I find the peer reviewers are actually more detailed at times. The list of comments first round is significant, but you get it in half the time. So great, just, give us what we need to knock down. We'll do that. It's just the trickle effect or the length of time. That's what costs us. We buy land. You have land values, the land costs burning. The interest carry is burning us alive. So we want that time. That time and accountability and predictability is more important to us than the twice as many comments.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from any committee members? Committee member Vice Chair Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Just a real quick comment. Sorry, not comment, question. There was a comment related to taking on the risk based on the order of permitting. What exactly does that risk look like to you?
Mike.
Oh.
The question.
Have to repeat it. I'm sorry. What does the risk look like to you when permitting comes out of order?
So in that instance, we needed to get the actual building foundation started. So I guess the risk would be if there was some review comment with respect to the site development permit or the sewer main permit that would impact where the location of the building would be, or we viewed it as very low. I think the reason that the logic exists, the order of operations exists in the permitting logic is to help protect the customer, right? So you don't go build a single family home and then, oh my gosh, I have no way to connect to any kind of sewer and I can't get septic approved. So I think that's kind of like the fail safe. But in our case, we know exactly what we're doing, and we just needed the building permit.
Harbor Freight, we built Harbor Freight over the top of a massive sewer line, and we left a 50 or 60 foot trench open, and then we kept building the building again. If the county wouldn't approve those permits, we could have been at risk. Again, they were going to approve them because it was the right thing to do. We had a plan in place, and there was no pushback. So we took the risk, though, that we didn't have that permit yet, but we took the risk to build a building over the top of it, essentially, and left it open. We could have dug it out. And so that was a risk. So there's a risk in rework. There's a risk in having to move a building. Residentially wise, there's a huge risk in not being able to service the project. But for us, that's the kind of risk, change the elevation, all sorts of things that we have to think through. We don't just say, hey, we'll take the risk. We go back to our corner and try to figure out if the engineers feel comfortable to make sure we don't have to redesign and take too much risk. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And just to clarify, engineers are licensed and by the state of Washington, and if they do make mistakes, their license is on the line. So are they bonded and insured, and how does that work? Does anyone?
They hopefully insured.
Yeah.
No, they definitely are.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, they carry errors and omissions insurance.
Yes.
Which essentially, if they make an error.
It usually has a go-forward period that has to stay in effect for 6 to 7 years. So, if something's going to happen if something's going to happen, it's likely going to happen during that period as it relates to their design. So, you have as long as they stay in business, and then you're okay.
Yeah. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. There's just so much here. It's like, where do you start? But I'm wondering, Mr. Ratty, you had mentioned on the permits that you bought your permits and then you were having to wait. Do you recall about how much you were out, sitting on permit costs while you were waiting for other ducks in a row?
Well, actually, you're talking about with the GU liner question? Yeah.
You're on the record, Dennis.
Yeah. Well, I guess
on the record, I'm going to say a lot.
Because I guess I'm looking at it. These are costs to what you were doing that are added into the cost of business, into the buildings, and therefore increasing the cost of anyone else doing business. And so, in trying to get things affordable, that's an obstacle.
Yes. It's significant, but it's everything leading up to that point is significant, from all the architectural, the engineering. That now, it used to be when you did a project, you may have 3 or 4 consultants. Now you have 20, because there's so many different things that you have to address. So yes, there's a lot of cost to get to that point. There's a cost to pull the permits, and then you're kind of just the proverbial backhoe sitting on the site with the engine running, waiting for it to show up.
Yeah. And then I'm going to assume that a lot of you have plans that are, being done out in the future. And can you describe the difficulty, like when regulations change and here all of a sudden you're looking at something that it's not in the pipeline, but now it's a different zone, if it's a different regulation, how does that affect you?
Yeah, change in zoning affects us significantly. Well, if we're invested significantly into a project through due diligence, we usually don't want to close on the property unentitled, without our trail map. Now we've gotten to the point where we don't want to close on a property until we've submitted for building permit. Building permits are changing just as quickly as anything else. We go get institutional equity partners, and that is a big red flag on their radar in the state of Washington. We need a building permit, and we need to make sure we're vested, not only in entitlements and land use, but we need to make sure we can build the building under the energy code mostly to what's being required, and that the city or the jurisdiction is not going to put a different requirement on us.
Actually, I was going to add to that, when there's a significant code change, like as in an energy code change, I'm sure the county had a major influx of permit applications that came in right before that code change, both from a financial standpoint and just to lock in, so there was an uncertainty about how it was going to be reviewed under the new code. So code changes have a dramatic impact.
And Mr. Wilson, on the energy code, about what was that adding to a unit for the new code versus prior?
The latest one is approximately $8,000 to $10,000 a unit. Cumulatively, over the last 3 cycles, we're pushing $40,000 a house between the 3 code cycle updates that have had significant changes to the energy code. Kudos to the county, though. At the time, the county knows these impacts, and they're just as frustrated with the level of change and what they have to change their review and learn the code. So the ability to vest applications for existing projects and get those building permit applications in so that you can stay with your current plan and process to not have those impacts come at you from left field. It's been great. The county's been very workable in that regard, and many jurisdictions have, because you have a plan set in place, and then the energy code's going to go in effect, it's not going to go in effect, and there's all this back and forth, and we're in limbo trying to build through a community. It's a big issue. So then what the effect is on new projects you're looking at, now we have to take that additional cost into effect, or into our feasibility analysis, and we don't pay those costs. Contrary to popular belief, the builder does not pay for the increased cost of these regulations. It gets passed on. So our pro forma, now our cost goes up, and our hard cost, now we got to sell that house for this much more, interest on that much more money, loan fees, all of the above, real estate fees. So it's a compounding thing that occurs as regulations that are affected by costs that are affected by regulations come into play. It's a trickle up effect.
I didn't think you were in it for your health. Yeah.
And just multifamily, the last energy code was $10,000 to $15,000 a unit.
And I should know this, but entitled property, or entitled project, I'm not.
Entitlement is the SEPA, MDNS. You'll see on our timeframes, we apply for a SEPA, State Environmental Protection Act. And then we get an MDNS, a mitigated determination of non-significance.
Okay.
So that is the document we get, which allows us,
it's your land use.
It confirms the use.
Okay.
It confirms the use and confirms it's the trail map of how we have to build it.
Unless they change the zoning to make the uses have
non-conforming,
be conditional uses.
Yeah, there's that risk too. If you change the zoning code and, for instance, in industrial, if you make distribution and manufacturing conditional use, that's not good for your project.
That's a second public process that doesn't currently exist.
Yep.
So it's just more process.
Yeah, and back to what I heard is everyone likes to say the developer is going to pay for it. The development pays for it, which then in turn increases the cost, increases the rent, increases the end customer, the business, the residential owner. They actually end up paying for it.
It's kind of like what I have to tell people at times. It's like you wouldn't be building if there wasn't a customer. So there's a good thing in that. On some of the regulations, do you find that you're being told you have to build to the regulation or build to the intent of the regulation? I'm wondering if there aren't avenues that, like in stormwater, you can do A and B and get the same result doing A and D for $20,000 less. But because the rule says you have to do A and B, do you come across that very often? That you have to, even though the result is the same with a less expensive way, you have to build to the more expensive way?
I would say that you, depending on the staff person assigned to the project, there's a level of experience not only with the county but in the industry. And so depending on somebody's comfort level of looking at functional equivalents or alternatives that are allowed by the department, in stormwater is your example, the Department of Ecology has a manual that they put out. The Pierce County creates its own manual based off of ecologies and ecology, or it's Pierce County's manual is a functional equivalent of ecologies, but it looks more specifically at the county and the uniqueness of Pierce County as it relates to that state manual. There's a lot of flexibility and alternatives within those, and it's the level of comfort of that particular reviewer getting into an engineered solution versus a prescriptive solution that's in the rigid requirements. So both are permitted. It's just if you get into actually engineering something today, there's a lot more back and forth. So the path of least resistance is going the prescriptive route, which isn't always the most cost-effective route, and it's all based on experience of that reviewer.
That's what I figured. The knowledge of I think the stormwater manual's about.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have for the moment. Thank you.
Any more questions from committee members? No? Okay, well, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I appreciate your time, your effort, your energy into what you do, your investment in Pierce County, and I appreciate the department being able to, listen, learn, and then hopefully implement. I'm going to ask you all one exit question. If you were king for the day, what is the number one issue you would do to make permitting more effective? Anyone can start.
I'll start. Thank you for having me. I want to acknowledge that, yes, you guys are in a chair to set policy for the county, and we as developers working here respect that. We're not looking to change the rules. We're just looking to provide suggestions on how to do it most efficiently and effectively to get what you ultimately have for your vision of the county. So from the policy, from your seat as a policymaker, the thing that I would ask, and I think that the development community would ask you to focus on two things, and you've heard them before, and you've heard them time and time again. It's predictability and it's timeliness. And I think the only way that it's going to get fixed, if it's a concern for you, is a mandate from council that here is our review time thresholds that we want to see as our level of service in the county. Let the department bring those to you for approval, but you've got to stay in touch and tuned and keep a thumb on that. And the predictability piece is, having the outreach. The county does a great job, I think, as far as the outreach goes and keeping the development community informed of changes. That's great, but there's a level of predictability in the timeliness of the permitting process that lenders that we deal with need. Our business plans, we need that predictability, and the lack of predictability adds cost. So if you can focus on those two things, predictability and timeliness, and basically set the department up for success. Here's our clear expectation. Here's what we want. We want building permits here. We want development engineering staff to a level that can achieve this particular level of service. You guys get to make that decision as policymakers. The staff gets to respond to that and tell you what they need to do it. That's how it can work together and be successful in my mind. A clear charge from the council and execution by the department. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess to start off, I feel like I'm maybe the head of the complaint department here, and that wasn't my intent. I was just trying to give you some examples of what's transpired, and we wouldn't have been able to do all that we've done in Pierce County without things working right, things. And I guess my voice here is about improvement, and I think that there are really strong staff members at the county, and some people that we've worked with for 20 plus years. That one of the questions is it process or codes? I don't think it's the codes. I mean, the codes are what they are. You have to interpret them, and it's procedures. And the staff, there are staff that we work with that are very collaborative. They're very approachable. They solution oriented. And I heard somebody say, when I pick your staff, it's like, please don't tell us that, because we're going to hit the hot button on some people that really enjoy. But I think for me, what we would look at is maybe a different version of what Kurt said, is transparency and accountability. Is transparency in terms of understanding where we are in the process, and with PALS is a great system, but you can see where you are in the queue, but there's nothing that says you're going to be done by this time. So how do we start getting to where that would be the predictable side of things? And I think that I don't know if you've hired a new director, but if you're looking to, I think I run a company, and for me, it's all about culture, and it's about the people, and if you can translate that into the world of the county, I think that, it's great for employee retention, it's great for employee motivation, and ultimately productivity. So I would say put that on the box to check for how you're going to look at this going forward. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and we also appreciate everything the council has done and everything the previous councils have done. The Pierce County has been a great hotbed for us. One, we live here, so we want to invest in our community. So we just really appreciate you guys giving us this platform to speak. That is a huge step in the right direction. We are speaking in a couple others occasionally, but you guys are really putting that outreach out. So thank you for wanting to learn from us. I would also offer, we have a wealth of information. So, and we are not trying to do the wrong thing. We're trying to do the right thing. So please reach out to us. I offer our services anytime for ideas or anything. So please always do that. Predictability is the huge one. And if we know our time frames, if we know our hurdles, then we can account for that. We can make a business plan around that. So I don't want to keep going on that one, but that one is just a real easy one. And then touching on the desire and the motivation. I mean, we're here to provide economic development. We're here to provide places for jobs. We're not providing the jobs, but without our Class A brand new buildings, jobs are going to go elsewhere. And so having the motivation and the staff and the desire to appreciate that versus not appreciate that. I mean, you're building single-family homes, and SFRs, you're building multifamily homes. You're providing housing. You should be desired, and people should want us to show up and can't wait for our permits to come in because we're here to solve the problem. Sometimes the culture doesn't feel that way, so I would just work on that. If I was king for a day.
Brian? If I was king for a day, I would explore expanding the executive priority program. I realize it can't be applied to every single applicant, but there are some absolutely wonderful aspects of it, such as the consistent meetings with staff and the ability to collaborate and prioritize. Some of our friends here at the table that are, delivering 60, 80, 100 homes in the county, certainly I think that would benefit them. So I guess to sum it up, maybe take a step back and look at how that program has operated, and it's been wildly successful for us. How feasible is it to expand that footprint? Is it more staff? Take the lessons learned from it, because it's great. It's a really great model.
Okay, thank you. Committee Member Herrera, you have a late question.
Late question. It's more of a comment a little bit, but I just wanted to thank the department for all the work you're doing. I did ask earlier, what are some of the unique issues that we have, and I was thinking on that a little bit. Is one thing that's unique about Pierce County is that we have a massive UGA that we have to plan for, and planning for urban services and development in that area with such a huge UGA can create problems and things like that. And that's what's the difference between King County, Kitsap County, and Thurston County. They have incorporated over the years. We have communities that probably should be cities, and we have a department that is trying to provide a service to a county in urban areas in places that should be cities and things like that. And I think that's something to take in consideration a little bit, and that's what distinguishes us from the other counties. And that's something to think about as we move forward. So thank you, Chair. That's just a comment I had.
Good. Thank you for that comment. Okay, is there any other business that needs to happen between staff? Is there anything that we need to cover?
Well, I would say for the information of everyone participating in this meeting, at the CDEC meeting on May 5th, we will have Mr. Kinley back to talk about workflow improvement process. And so I think that's a nice follow-on to some of the things that you've learned here and some of the things the department's learned here. That's part of an ongoing reporting. There's a couple of times when he'll be visiting CDEC for that. So I thought that might be of interest to those participating. Next meeting coming up, we have May 13th. We'll have our economic development crew back to give us some reports on what happened in 2024. Those things tend to happen a little earlier in the year. But this committee was busy talking with members of the community and learning some new information. So we'll have we'll have the arts program report. We'll also have, Tom, it's totally the local tourism advisory.
LTAC and TPA.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so we'll have them to come and give reports. We've also invited Workforce Central to give their report. And then it will be a busy meeting. Our Office of the County Engineer is going to come and give us a study session on the Fox Island Bridge type size and location study. So we have a busy meeting coming up for May 13th. Thank you very much.
Okay. You had also mentioned the Community Development Environmental Committee. When are the code changes coming to that committee?
For
the comp plan.
The comp plan related code amendments. I know that the department is still working on those. We do not quite have them yet for review. So I think that is, we know that they're coming soon. They're very on the cusp of coming. I don't know if we want to ask Ms. Flemister about that.
I'm here, it's touch and go on May 19th. We're still waiting to determine if we're going to make that time.
Could you repeat that?
So Ms. Flemister reports that there's a tentative date of May 19th, but it's not clear whether or not that will be we'll be able to make that date. It's quite a lengthy, it's several hundred pages of code for review, and staff at the department and at the council office have been working together to do what we can to get it to you as soon as possible, but it does take significant review once we receive it here at the council office.
Okay. I just wanted everyone to make sure you keep an eye on that, because that will be the next large task that the council has, is looking at those codes, changing them if necessary, and making sure we understand the impact to everybody's industry out there. And from my standpoint, I just want to say thank you for what you do, your investment in Pierce County, trying to solve some of our challenges with housing, with industrial property. We are a unique county that has a unique job base to it. We are not King County and we are not Thurston County, but we are Pierce County, and we take pride in that. And so thank you for all you do. And I think at that point, if everyone wants to make sure they chat while you've got this group here, the chamber is yours for another half hour. Thank you. We're adjourned.